Hello there, this is Hannah Levin with Heartfelt Wellbeing, and today's topic for our Tuesday talk is the shift into autumn. We're almost at the autumn equinox, and depending on where you live, that shift will happen at different times, but getting prepared for the shift from summer into autumn is awesome. And so I want to help you do that. I know some areas are already feeling very chilly already. Here, it's almost the middle of September when I'm recording this. And you may already be experiencing like it's colder out. You're needing to wear more clothes. Maybe your hands and feet are getting chilly more often. Maybe you're having to get in the attic and get the sweaters out that you put away over the summer. And I just want to put this in a context for you of what Ayurveda's perspective is on this and how you can support yourself through this shift in the seasons. So just a little preface with this, if this is kind of new for you. So all of us have what's called prakriti, or a specific balance of the elements or doshas that determines our perfect balance of vata, pitta, and kapha. So vata is made up of air and space, pitta made up of fire and water, and kapha made up of earth and water. And we all have all of the doshas in us, but just in differing amounts. Now, our constitution, our prakriti, which is our base constitution, and you might need to work with an Ayurvedic practitioner to determine what yours is. It's not something that is totally obvious, although you can take a dosha quiz, and I have one on my website if you want to check that out. But the prakriti doesn't change. What changes is our vikriti, or the ways in which elements get affected as we move through the seasons, as we move through life events, and as we move through life stages. And so we get out of balance in different ways at different times. And one of the best ways for us to support ourselves in staying in balance is to be aware of seasons. And the seasonal shifts specifically are kind of delicate times. So when we're shifting from one season into the next, and if we look at the ways the seasons move, we're basically in those shifts moving from hot to cold or cold to hot. Okay? And so this seasonal shift really is that autumn and spring are the joints in the seasons. And the seasons are fluid. they're moving. So the Sanskrit term that is used here is called Ritu Sandhi, and Ritu means seasonal. So we also have Ritu Charya, which is seasonal rhythms. We have Dinacharya, which is daily rhythms that are affected by the Ritu Charya, by the seasonal rhythms. So I just want to preface what I'm about to say with all of that. So remember, everything in Ayurveda comes back to the three questions: for who, when, and how much. So I'm going to give you some general information. And then I also want you to understand that all of it may not apply to you, or some of it might apply to you more than other pieces of it. We are moving right now from pitta season, which is summer. So there's a lot of heat, fire element, a lot of light, fire element, and some water, more moisture, more swimming, drinking lots of water. So we're moving from pitta season, where it's our longest days of the year, there's the most heat in our environment, we wear the least clothing, we maybe have been eating a lot less food if we're really feeling into the support of that solar energy. And then we're moving into vata season, and vata is the elements of air and ether, or air and space. So there's a lot more dryness. there's a light quality in terms of weight that comes in. There's a lightness in the air, in the drying of the leaves. The nights are getting longer, right? So we're moving towards the equinox, which will be equal day and night. And then after that, the nights will be a little bit longer and a little bit longer gradually until we reach the winter solstice. So what is happening in the natural world right now is what we need to take our cues from. So the natural world, all the plants are pulling their energy back. So through the summer, they've been growing. All this energy moving up towards the sun, growth, fruit, flower, right? And now as it starts, and again, this will happen at different times. If you're in like Florida or Texas right now, you're probably not feeling much autumn yet. But I know in Colorado, even here in Virginia, we're feeling some fall moving in. Leaves are turning. It's chilly in the mornings and in the evenings. It's not as hot during the day. It's getting dark earlier. Like all of these things are happening. So what's happening to the plants? They're pulling their energy back in and down to their roots, like to the trunk or the stem, and then down to the roots. And that will happen over the course of the entire autumn until what's showing becomes brown and dry and brittle, but the roots are still alive below the earth's surface. So we need to kind of do the same thing, which is to stop being so externally focused and doing all the things all the time. And we need to slow down and make sure we're staying warm and make sure we're cultivating a strong digestive fire and make sure we're getting a little more rest, a little more sleep. Now, towards the end of the summer, the Agni or digestive fire is weaker. Over the course of the summer, it becomes more and more weak. And so part of what the challenge is at the end of the summer is that we've taken in a lot of heat into our bodies from the environment. There's a lot of heat that is like we might just feel kind of hot a lot of the time, or we might feel hot-headed. The way that heat shows up for each of us is a little bit different. And the invitation that Ayurveda gives us so beautifully at this time of the year is to really discern what is the heat that we want to keep in our bodies, like to kindle our digestive fire, and then what is the heat that we need to dissipate so that we're not carrying it in an unhealthy way into the winter. So what does that look like? What does unhealthy heat look like? Well, physically, it can look like being too hot in the body so that there's too much drying that's going on. So there's already drying in the environment. And this is particularly important for people that are more Pitta or Vata predominant or imbalanced, is that excess heat then leads to more and more drying. And if the drying's already happening, then that's a challenge. So dry skin, dry mucosal membranes, so like dry nose, dry eyes, dry ears, even dry mouth. Those things can show up a lot more if we have excess heat in our bodies. And what we want to do basically is to clear the heat that has been built up over the summer. And that happens for a lot of us too with consuming alcohol and caffeine, a lot of coffee and alcohol during the summer, because that builds up excess heat, inflammation in the tissues as well. So clearing that out is really, really important. But we also want, it's kind of like we want to clear the excess heat from the tissues, but then bring heat back to the cooking fire in our bellies, the Agni. And so it's a both and. We want to like kindle the cooking fire, and we want to clear out the detrimental heat that's come into our bodies. And the best way to do this is to detox. So here's a shameless plug for my autumn detox that is happening. September 25th through October 16th. And I'll put a link with this video. You can sign up for that. And so it's a 3-week experience, and we're basically focusing on clearing the channels, the digestive fire, getting kindled, and going into the winter as we're getting more hungry. You might notice this as the weather cools, that your hunger builds. And it should if your digestive fire is strong enough. So we get more hungry and we need more sustenance when the weather is cool. So our energy is drawing in. We're needing more of that cultivated inner fire to keep ourselves warm, to circulate our blood, and to stay happy and healthy. This shows up too in the skin's luster. Like we can kind of be glowing in the summertime, and then when fall hits, because all the energy is kind of like draining in, and we may have excess heat that's burning in ways that isn't helpful, like drying out the tissues. We're not staying juicy and plump and rosy in our skin, or this might show up as outbreaks of rashes or acne, eczema, things like that. So the air that comes in through the autumn can sometimes be like the wind blowing on the fire, and we don't want that. We want to make sure that there's not fire for the air to blow on. But then we also want to pacify the air. So some things that we want to do is to change what we're eating, for one thing. So in the summer, you might have been eating a lot more fresh foods, cooling foods, and focusing on the tastes of sweet, bitter, and astringent. Those are all cooling tastes. And as we move into Vata season, we want to focus more on warming tastes and calming taste. So sweet remains, but then we want to add in sour and salty instead of bitter and astringent. Now, the degree to which you focus on this will depend on the degree to which you need to. Remember the questions for who, when, and how much. If you are more Vata predominant or Vata imbalanced, you are going to need to take really specific care of yourself as we move into Vata season. Remember that the season that is governed by the dosha of your predominant dosha or imbalance is going to be the season where you're most likely to go out of balance. And that means you need to stay on top of really taking good care of yourself. So staying warm, switching from maybe dry brushing your body to doing warm oil massages. We call that abhyanga. We want to be supporting the digestive fire, so we bring in ferments or ideally foods that you're making that are informed by the macrobiome. So the macrobiome is fermenting into what feeds your microbiome to help inoculate it with really good supportive bacterial bugs, basically. We want really good bugs in our systems. So supporting ourselves with spices as well. So we don't want really hot spices because those are going to aggravate the pitta that's left in the system. So we don't so much want things like cayenne or jalapenos or wasabi or things like that. Again, every once in a while is fine. We want to focus more on digestive supportive spices, things like cumin, cinnamon, cardamom, things like that help support the digestive fire. So as we move towards the equinox, and this is why I'm recording this a little bit before the equinox, so you can have an awareness of all of this before we hit the equinox. There are lots of things you can notice in your environment. So that it's getting dark earlier is one thing. We ideally are going to bed a little earlier. We're getting a little bit more sleep. And really, for most of us that get up in the morning and need to be somewhere at a certain time and need to kind of basically wake up the same time all year round, going to bed earlier is the way that you're going to get more sleep, which we need more sleep as it gets colder and as the nights grow longer, taking our cues from the natural world. It's so intelligent. If we just pay attention and align, we become more easeful, healthier, happier people. So getting in alignment before that shift happens. So the equinox is the balance between the day and the night, the light and the dark. And this is really awesome to tune into this time of balance. And this year it's September 23rd. And another shameless plug, I'm doing an online women's equinox retreat on the 23rd, on the solstice. If you would like to come together in community and honor the the equinox with yoga, meditation, learning about Ayurveda for the season, creative practices. We're going to be doing a cool watercolor project, so you'll be given a little list of things that you need to get ready for that. And some reflection on the season that's passed and some planning for the season that's coming. That's all happening on September 23rd. I'll post a link for that as well. And you can really feel like when you take the time to honor that balance, that crossover point. We're no longer in summertime. We are moving into autumn. That shift is happening. Then you start to look at the balance that's in your life in lots of different ways. It's really an invitation for all of us to pause and to notice where we can invite more balance into our lives between doing and being. That's a great one to ponder and to reflect on where we are in our life stage, where we are in terms of our desires for what we want our life to look like. And this is really beautiful. The equinoxes are a great time for this. So nourishing ourselves in all the ways that bring in warmth, compassion, grounding. So the energy of the autumn is going to try to like pick us up and swirl us around in the air. That's what the energy of the air and space. So space is the principle of expansion and air is directional movement. So this is what is coming in autumn to kind of be the main energies in our environment. It doesn't mean there won't be some rainy days. There will be. But in general, it's a lot of Vata energy. And so we want to ground the Vata. We want to tend to our home. We want to be less active out in the world. Take some things off of your calendar, off of your plate. Really tune into what needs to be released, and specifically if there's things tied with heat, resentment, jealousy, anger, like those types of emotions, and then also inflammation in the body. And again, these joints and the seasons are the best time of the year to do a detox, or what my detox is basically a reset. It's a reset of your digestion. It's a reset of your perspective. It's a reset of your sleep. And this is really important so that you don't go into the winter really out of balance. So you're not carrying that really heat-informed energy with you. So I hope that this is really helpful for you. And I'd like you to think about what are the ways in which you are echoing the natural world, pulling the energy in and going down to the roots. What are the foods that are showing up at the farmer's market or coming out of your garden? They're changing. This is the time of autumn fruit coming in too. So it's more like apples and pears and less like plums and peaches and berries and melons. So we're moving more to these like deeper nourishing root vegetables and adding some more beneficial fat to your foods. So all of these pieces are really, really helpful. So I encourage you to sign up for the retreat, sign up for the detox, and really think about how you can choose each day to align more with the shifts that are happening in the seasons, so you can honor where you are, support yourself to be the healthiest and happiest you can be, and to move forward into the seasons ahead with ease, grace, and support for your health. So send me your questions. I'll talk to you all soon. Have a beautiful day.